On This Week in Enterprise Tech, Google's search engine isn't forgetful enough, Microsoft's AI is too racist, and Dropbox, it's a side you've never seen before. Try it on the set.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Enterprise Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Twit. This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 182. Recorded March 25th, 2016. Deep dive into the Dropbox. This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV is an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the life of your account, go to itpro.tv/enterprise and use the code ENTERPRISE30. And by Citrix GoToWebinar. Connect and convert qualified leads with GoToWebinar, the leading platform for engaging online events. For a 30-day free trial, visit gotowebinar.com today. And by Atlassian. Unleash your team's potential with collaborative software tools like HipChat and Jira, which will enable you to work and communicate better together. Visit Atlassian.com to learn more. Welcome to Twit. This Week in Enterprise Tech. It's the show dedicated to the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and the geek who just wants to know how the world is connected. I'm your host, Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, your guide to all things in the enterprise. But of course, I'm not going to guide you by myself. I am joined by my friends, my cohorts, my colleagues, my co-hosts, starting with Mr. Brian Chee. He is the director of the Advanced Network Computing Laboratory in Honolulu, Hawaii. Brian, it's hot and sticky in Hawaii, is it not?
In fact, we actually have flash flood alerts for tonight up till early tomorrow morning. But that's all right because everybody's at home. It is a state holiday honoring Prince Jonah Kuhio.
Yes, I remember that. It was always fun to have Good Friday off, but it's not for Good Friday. A man who is celebrating a Good Friday is our other co-host, Mr. Curtis Franklin from Information Week Radio. Curtis, good to see you from the right coast where it's not so hot and sticky.
Well, it's warmish, but it's a gray, rainy day here in the Sunshine State. So it's a great day to be inside visiting with all of our friends in the Twit Riot.
Well, gentlemen, we've got a great episode planned for our audience. Later on, we'll be having Thomas Hansen. He is the Global VP of Revenue at Dropbox. He's going to be talking all about the strategy that has created one of the most recognizable storage as a service companies on the planet. But before we do that, let's go ahead and jump straight into the blips. This first one is all about... I forget. Anyways, last year, Google began complying with an order from the French National Commission on Computing and Liberty to enforce the right to be forgotten established by the Court of Justice of the European Union in May of 2014. They removed applicable search results from its European domains, including google.co.uk and google.fr, but left those results on google.com. Well, it seems that Google hasn't forgotten enough. The French court has fined Google €100,000 for not complying across all their web properties. The court could have fined Google up to €300,000, so it seems that even the French court understands that Google is walking a tightrope between complying with orders and establishing a precedent for cross-jurisdiction unilateral legislation. But it's still a long road to satisfaction for either party. Google has started to hide results on its non-European parties, but only for users in European countries. As that measure can be easily bypassed by a VPN service, it's not clear if that will satisfy the CNIL.
Microsoft learns an internet lesson. Redmond, meet the internet. Microsoft has taken its AI chatbot, Tay, offline after machine learning taught the software agent to parrot hate speech. Engineers from Microsoft's Technology and Research and Bing teams created Tay as an experiment in conversational understanding. The bot was designed to learn from user input and user social media profiles to be a conversational companion for 18 to 25-year-olds with mobile devices. Fed with anti-Semitism and anti-feminism through Twitter, one of the bot's 4 social media channels, Tay responded in kind. After endorsing Hitler and soliciting incestuous sex, Tay was taken offline for some re-engineering and re-education. For enterprise software developers tasked with AI projects, there's a big lesson here. You might try spending just a few minutes actually using the internet before unleashing it on a poor, defenseless AI.
Well, on a similar subject, net pornality comes to T-Mobile's Binge On. I keep maintaining that the true test of T-Mobile's Binge On program would be if a porn streaming service got added, and that prediction just came true. The My Candy Theater porn streaming service just got added to the Binge On program this weekend and truly supports that T-Mobile is committed to net neutrality.
Another hospital, another ransomware attack. 1 month ago, Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital in Los Angeles suffered a ransomware attack that left its network unresponsive. The attack was only ended after the hospital paid $17,000, about 40 bitcoins, to decrypt their files. This week, another hospital, this one in Kentucky, has declared a, quote, internal state of emergency after a ransomware attack shut down all the hospital's desktops. Methodist Hospital in Henderson, Kentucky was hit by Locky, a popular strain of ransomware that jumped from its initially infected desktop into several other systems around the hospital. As a precaution, the hospital shut down all the network computers and are bringing them back up air-gapped one at a time, checking each for signs of infection. A hospital spokesman says that no patient files have been affected, though the down network has forced the hospital to resort to paper workflow. The ransomers have asked for 4 bitcoins, or about $1,600, which the hospital has not yet decided if they'll pay.
Oracle will give you the cloud in your data center. Oracle is launching a system meant to duplicate the Oracle public cloud in a customer's data center. The Oracle Cloud at Customer is a fully compatible implementation of the Oracle public cloud for private cloud use. Oracle Cloud at Customer uses the same hardware, software, and management systems as Oracle's public cloud. The big change for customers is that Oracle will invoke the same per hour or per month pricing used with Oracle Cloud, making Cloud at Customer an unusually inexpensive proposition with which to get started. While Oracle will remotely manage the systems, customers will have control over their own applications and virtual machines in the cloud. Cloud at Customer servers can run all the customer software that Oracle's public cloud can run, including applications written in Python, C, C++, Microsoft .NET languages, Ruby, and Java.
Well, there's a 2-year-old Linux flaw that's also in Android and is now in the wild. It would seem the Zimperian folks, they uncovered the stage fright flaw, has found that a 2-year-old flaw in the Linux kernel that wasn't even flagged as a vulnerability until April of 2014 and was then finally called CVE 2015-1805. Google has rushed to patch this issue, but Zimperian reports that the exploit has already appeared on an app for the Nexus 5 phone. While the Bad Boy app has been blocked on the Play Store, it's not clear as to how long the malware has been in the wild. The good news is that patch is soon to be available on all the Nexus devices. However, other Android devices are still vulnerable, and nobody knows when those manufacturers will be able to implement the patch to prevent hackers from gaining root access to their Android device.
It looks like the FCC auction of the 600 megahertz wireless spectrum is finally absolutely completely on again. Maybe. The off-complaint about auction has been delayed, shifted, and outright moved since it was first announced, but it seems as if we are finally out of the litigious woods. There are 104 applications to be part of the auction, and the players include Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, US Cellular, Comcast, and others, though not Sprint, all who are hoping to give a piece of the expected $60 billion pie. 600 megahertz is the wireless equivalent of prime real estate with the ability to travel great distances into buildings, around, and through obstacles. The carriers have been chomping at the bit to get their hands on the spectrum, but the auction has been held up by everything from political infighting between Republicans and Democrats on the FCC commission to carriers complaining about the provisions of the auction, which may include open and rural access-friendly provisions. The TLDR version, the FCC is about to get $60 billion or more. Carriers are going to get some juicy bandwidth, and assuming the FCC doesn't back down from their tough stance, we're getting better wireless access. It's a win-win-win. Well, on that win, let's go ahead and move on to the bites. But before we do that, let's thank the first sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now, one of the questions we get asked quite a bit on this show is, how do I break into IT? I mean, you could do it the old-fashioned way, to find someone who is working in IT, maybe a network admin, and shadow him or her. Figure out your trade from what they do. Learn over years and years of experience. But if that's not for you, if you have a job right now, if you're trying to break into the IT field in a new way, then you need IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV is the best way to find, hone, and learn your IT skills. IT changes daily, and a good IT Pro is constantly learning, and you'll treasure IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV offers over 1,000 hours of content, and they're adding 50 hours each week. They have an extensive library covering A+, CCNA, MCSA, ethical hacking, AWS, virtualization, security, and cryptography, desktop and server support, pretty much everything, and that's just the start. You can stream their courses live and on demand worldwide to your Chromecast, or Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or PC, plus learn on the go with your mobile device. And their new courses for March include CCNP, Security, Microsoft Server 2016 MCSE, and Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager. They even include more than 100 step-by-step virtual machine labs and Transcender practice exams, a $109 value that they give you for free with your subscription. IT Pro TV offers a low monthly subscription rate with a no-hassle cancellation policy because they're confident that you're going to find their content compelling, relevant, and continuously useful for your IT life. Now, Transcript lets you follow from start to finish or jump right to any part of the video. In other words, if you have a question about a specific setting, about a specific piece of gear, you can search IT Pro TV and jump straight to that video, get the answer, and jump out. IT Pro TV isn't just a place to learn, it's your best reference if you are an IT professional. With a client list filled with names like Harvard, MIT, UCSD, and Stanford, and with corporate and group pricing available, you really don't have a reason not to try out itpro.tv. So here's what we want you to do. Check out itpro.tv/enterprise. That's itpro.tv/enterprise to upgrade your brain with the most popular IT certifications. Premium subscriptions are normally $57 a month or $570 per year, but we have a special offer. Try it free for 7 days when you sign up using our code ENTERPRISE30 to check out their courses, live stream, and more. You'll also receive 30% off the lifetime of your account. That's less than $40 per month or $399 for the entire year. Once again, that's itpro.tv/enterprise, itpro.tv/enterprise. Use the code ENTERPRISE30 to try it free for 7 days and to save 30%. And we thank itpro.tv for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Let's get to it. Gentlemen, we've got a weird story. I don't know if we group this under network administration or net neutrality or just strange going-ons in the content industry, but we have a story here about Netflix throttling Verizon and AT&T users. That's a little strange. Now, some of the users have been complaining that AT&T and Verizon have been throttling their Netflix access while they were on their mobile devices. But yesterday, Netflix came out and they confirmed that Netflix is actually the one that is dropping these customers down to a lower resolution in order to help them with their data caps. Now, Netflix is looking over the policy, and they're promising to provide users with more input into that experience. In other words, if you're on AT&T or Verizon and you're trying to use Netflix, they will let you decide whether or not you want to use a lot of your cap or a little bit of your cap. Now, Chee, let me throw this to you because the obvious comparison is going to be to binge on T-Mobile. Netflix is inside the T-Mobile binge on network, and they seem to be getting preferential treatment here because there is no cap. There's that 0 rating, and it seems as if users of T-Mobile are getting a better experience. I don't know if this falls under net neutrality because this is more a user experience thing. How do you see this story?
Actually, I do kind of see it as having something to do with net neutrality because they are basically making this as part of their system. You know, it's not, we're not talking about interconnects and things like that. What we're talking about here is that Netflix is making an attempt to not suck down your data caps. Now, my only objection to this is right now it's very difficult, or reasonably difficult, for someone to go and find out how, where the control is to jump it back up to the full HD stream. So it's almost as if you can't even opt in or opt out yet. Netflix is promising that their mobile version of their client will have that control widget put in, but they haven't announced when. So I'm mushy on this. I'm not sure if I like it or I don't like it, because it does, try to do something good, but I think maybe Netflix should have had the widget put into their client before they started doing this.
Yeah, and that's the strange thing. And Curtis, I want to throw this over to you. You will remember when we were in the midst of all the net neutrality FUD, when we were going back and forth, pro net neutrality, against net neutrality legislation, Netflix did take a stand. And if you had a stream that started to fail, a little box would pop up and say, hey, do you want to know why? And it's because X, X, and X are throttling you. Now it seems as if, well, Netflix is doing it. Netflix is doing the same thing that they were accusing the ISPs of doing, but they expect their customers just to take it on faith that they were doing it on account of the customers. Do you smell the same fishiness that I do?
I don't know. I'm having trouble getting worked up over this because it's important to remember that it's Netflix slowing down their own traffic. This is something that they're doing, they say, for the purposes of protecting their customers, which is a good thing. It becomes a customer service issue. Now, it's possible that what they're really doing is trying to leverage some payment schemes in the transmission protocols, but we haven't heard that. So if they are throttling themselves, if they are adapting to what some of the last mile carriers are doing on behalf of their customers, I don't see this as a real problem. The whole net neutrality thing was over someone trying to extort money from a provider. And in this case, as best we can tell, it's not a question of Netflix owing someone more money if they give the high quality bandwidth. It's just that they would start blowing up their users' data plans. And I think Netflix is quite correctly seeing that it wouldn't take many months of blowing up a customer's data plan before that customer stopped streaming content to their mobile device. And for many users, if they stop streaming to their mobile device, well, there's no need for them to have Netflix at all. So I think that this is an adaptation. While I am a proponent of net neutrality, this seems to me to be an issue of wireless carrier data plans in terms of overall consumption, which is frankly a market issue, and one content provider's response to that. While you can make an issue of it, I'm having trouble seeing it. To me, this is a case not of censorship or someone else throttling a content stream, but of basic market forces and a content provider trying hard to hang on to their customers.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. There are people in the chat room right now who are going back and forth on whether or not this was a cost-saving feature from Netflix, which I don't see. I don't see them saving a whole lot of money by dropping you down to a 600K stream over a 1 megabit per second stream. I think you're on it, though, which is Netflix wants to encourage mobile consumption, and they're not going to get it if the first month that a customer watches Netflix on their phone, they realize, I just used half my cap watching a 1 hour show, a 1 hour movie. And so this was a way for them to reduce that sticker shock. But I'm also with Brian, which is assuming even the purest intent from Netflix, that they were doing this because they wanted to protect their customers, because they wanted to make sure that their customers could get a passable experience without blowing their cap, it was still incredibly ham-fisted not to tell them that they were doing this up front, because it sounds too much like what they were accusing the ISPs of doing during the net neutrality debate. Cheebert, this is not going to be the last. I mean, Netflix may or may not learn their lesson from this, but we're going to see more and more companies whose business it is to provide over the internet things as a service, movies, content, entertainment, services as a service who are going to want to maintain a certain level of experience for their customers, and will be faced with this idea of throttling, but not for network management, but purely for customer enjoyment. Do we need to have a seminar on this? I mean, is this a discussion for Twite? Is this a discussion for Information Week?
You know, I don't know. I'm torn, shall we say. There's some folks that are kind of, you know, openly saying that this is a violation of the open internet provisions, and that Netflix is doing a double standard. And this was actually a statement from Randolph May, president of the free market think tank, the Free State Foundation. He actually said Netflix's complete lack of transparency about the practice, especially in light of its strident advocacy against treating internet communications differently. Mr. Mace calls that stunning. But I agree with Curt. This is why. You know, it was done with good intentions. I just think they need to hurry up and get their new data saver feature out. You know, I think they should have rolled that out first and then started saying, hey, we're going to give you an option to say, you know, not blow up your data caps, and gee, we're going to start you off with throttling you down because you really don't need that kind of resolution on your mobile device, but use the data saver feature if you want to crank it back up and you're okay with blowing up, you know, your data usage.
Right, right. In the meantime, I really enjoy Binge on my T-Mobile phone, and that has become my primary Netflix device, so go figure. Gentlemen, let's move on really quickly because I do want to get to our guest, but there is one more story that I'd like to do a semi-deep dive on, and it was actually one of the blips. It's the right to be forgotten that was established by the European courts back in May of 2014. Now, we know that this whole case started in 1998 when Spanish citizen Mario Costeja Gonzalez wanted to remove all mention of his court-ordered estate auction to recover debts. Now, the idea was that the court said they should be able to remove the reference to the stories without removing the stories, because removing the stories would be censorship, but removing the reference would be kind, humane, ethical, especially if it only dealt with an event that was embarrassing or a minor infraction. So in the blip, we talked about how Google has been, they've got a process and they've been going, albeit at a slow pace, of responding to all the requests for those takedowns. Since that 2014 ruling, Google has received 407,673 requests under the Right to be Forgotten Act. That totals 1,425,748 URLs, and so far it has delisted 42.6% of those from its search engines. Cheebert, let me throw this to you first. I wasn't the biggest fan of the right to be forgotten, but it is law in Europe. But now the issue is creeping out that they want those results delisted, not just for the servers in Europe. And now we get into this really sticky, messy dialogue about, well, where does the right to be forgotten end? Or does it now encompass the entire globe, even though it was one court in one part of the world?
George Orwell, your crystal ball was oh so accurate. This is one of those topics that is never, ever going to go away. There's going to be two sides. There's going to be people saying this is censorship and that the freedom of speech is being violated. And there are others that are going to say, well, but I have a right to be forgotten. And I don't think we're ever going to have a resolution. You know, that's my personal opinion. I think it's going to be a bone of contention between the United States and the European Union, probably long after I'm cold and 6 feet under.
Right, right. And Curtis, I don't want to make this good guy, bad guy thing, because it is a law. It is law in Europe. And I can understand that they're saying, wait a minute, if our citizens can access your servers, then that falls under the same jurisdiction. It's coming into my country, and therefore it should be filtered out. Now, it may not be the most technologically savvy law, but it is a law. And the other part about that is Google, for its part, is starting to hide results for European Union citizens that are coming in. But if they use a VPN service that locates them someplace else, they can get access to that, which is very much not okay with the court. In fact, they've already come down and said you need to protect against that, which, as we know with Netflix, is a cat and mouse game. You can never, in the age of the internet, stop someone at a geographical boundary and turn that into an absolute network boundary. So for you, we are talking about citizens right now, but we've also got takedown notices being filed by businesses, by enterprises who have embarrassing stories that they would prefer not to be public notice anymore. Where do we stop? Where is that line drawn between a story that is good for public consumption and a story that is a minor infraction or just an embarrassing one?
Well, among other things, this is one of those places where the law as it exists in the U.S. and the law as it exists in pretty much the rest of the world are vastly different. In the U.S., for example, when it comes to libel laws, truth is pretty much a defense against that. That's not true in other parts of the world. In other parts of the world, if you publish something that is embarrassing, even if it's true, you can be held liable for it. The fact is that the laws around the world, the laws of each sovereign nation, weren't created originally to take into account anything like the internet, which, as you point out, makes political boundaries meaningless in a lot of cases. So I think that the world is catching up with that. There are technological solutions that companies like Google are putting into place, but in many ways, these laws, these results that we're seeing in Europe are among the reasons that so many nations want control over naming, control over some of the basic constructs of the internet to be taken out of U.S. hands. They want it in an international body's hands, an international body that would be much more sympathetic to their laws, their regulations, and their desire to control what their citizens see. So, as Brian said, this is going to play out for a long time, but this is one of the issues that is leading to the biggest struggle that the internet will have seen, and that is over who controls the basic pipes and machinery of the internet itself.
Gentlemen, we do need to move on because I want to get our guest in here, but I want one final note on this story, and that is between June 2014 and June 2015, governments have issued 6,990 removal requests for 60,439 items. So if we are to consider the right to be forgotten, we need to consider what our governments might be asking us to forget. When we come back, we are going to be talking to our guest, who is Thomas Hansen, the Global VP of Revenue for Dropbox. He's going to be talking all about their strategy, how they've been pushing into the enterprise, and what they might be able to do for you as storage as a service. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a break to talk a little bit to the marketers out there. I know you're in the audience. I know it's your responsibility to make sure the word gets out about your product. Maybe it's a new service that you're offering. Maybe it's a new line. Maybe it's something shiny that you believe will finally solve that issue, that problem that so many of your customers have been having, or so many of your potential customers may want to solve. Well, if that's you, if that's your job, if that's what you do, you understand the difficulty of getting the right message out. It's not just having a webinar. It's not just posting information on the web. It's making it an experience, getting people to actually understand you contain the knowledge, the products, the expertise to do what they need you to do. That's why we're so happy to have Citrix GoToWebinar as a supporter, because the GoToWebinar lets you present to hundreds of potential clients with confidence, letting you connect, captivate, and convert your target audience in one go. So here's how it works. You pick your topic, you select your audience, and you schedule your event. That's it. That's all you have to do. GoToWebinar does everything else. It uses automated emails, custom branding, and practice sessions to make sure that your audience is ready to go when you are. Now, speaking of practice sessions, that's one of my favorite features. If you've ever tried using unified communications tools to present to multiple endpoints, you know the buzzkill that is tech support during a presentation. Nothing kills a pitch like having half an hour of tech issues before you actually present. Now, with GoToWebinar, your audience can test ahead of time so that they're ready when the time comes to be concerned about nothing else but you, your message, and your company. Of course, it doesn't stop with prepping your audience for the presentation. During the event, GoToWebinar will keep your audience engaged with interactive polls, live chat, and real-time feedback. And once the event is over, you get one-click registration attendance and performance metrics. Basically, GoToWebinar enables marketers like you to easily reach your target audience and turn leads into customers. So here's what we want you to do. Get started with GoToWebinar today to connect and convert. Visit gotowebinar.com to start your free 30-day trial. That's gotowebinar.com for your free 30-day trial. And we thank GoToWebinar for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Let's welcome to the show Mr. Thomas Hansen, again, the Global VP of Revenue at Dropbox. Thomas, thank you very much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for the invite.
Now, normally, when we have a guest, we give them time to explain what it is that their company does and what services they may offer. I don't think we really need to do that with Dropbox. Dropbox is one of those companies that became such a big name so quickly that everyone understands what you do. Do you ever have to do that pitch?
You'd be surprised that you still have to go into a discussion. But I also think, look, the reality here is when Drew originally founded the company, it was really as a memory stick replace. He was sitting on a bus, didn't have a memory stick, had to find a way around that, and on that notion, so to speak, Dropbox was born. Today, we're more than a memory stick in the cloud. Today, we are the world-leading collaboration tool that allows people to be creative together, to innovate together, to collaborate together. So there is an element of us having to tell that story and make certain that also folks out there, specifically in the enterprise, understands that whilst we were born as a consumer company almost 9 years ago, we no longer are a company living in just in the consumer space. We're not an all company, we're an and company. So we are in B2C and in B2B. We are a serious enterprise player. We played in this space for 3 years now and are very very proud of the progress we made in that space. But there's still a little bit of explanation that one has to do, and that's all good. That's all part of good conversations with folks out there across the world.
Now, we want to spend a lot of time talking about Dropbox pushing into the business side, into enterprise, because that's a fascinating story. But before we do that, let's pull back a little bit. Let's give people a little bit of grounding for Dropbox. They may know the name, but they may not know the story. Now, Dropbox, you were really, if not one of the original poster children for this idea of born in the cloud. The ability to take an idea, a good idea, in this case, replacing the thumb drive, and turn it from an idea into a concrete product and service in just a matter of weeks and months. It had not been done before, and it could only be done because these companies like Amazon and now Microsoft and Google were offering infrastructure as a service for rent over the internet. Can you talk about the development of Dropbox, how you landed on Amazon and then just exploded?
Absolutely. Before I even get there, allow me just to tell you a quick story. In case you're wondering about my kind of strange accent, I'm born and raised in Denmark, although I haven't lived there for more than 20 years. For the last plus 20 years, I lived in the Middle East, in South Africa and Asia, and for the last 7 years on US West Coast. My first job was I managed a windsurfing shop more than 20 years ago. And in that shop, we were trying to sell some goods. We were a local business, local customers. We didn't have a computer. We didn't have a cash register. I had an invoice book and shared an analog phone with the plumber next door. When you work like that, you are an analog local business. The beautiful thing about technology, of course, and specifically the cloud is, well, effectively, the cloud provides access for any business, whatever size they are, to move from being a local business to utilizing technology to work with their suppliers, customers, employees, you name it, to expand beyond the local city or suburb or region, and to become a truly global micro-enterprise or a global enterprise. So, look, technology and cloud is a pretty significant enabler of many, many businesses, small, medium, and large across the world, which is exciting, right? And that's why we're all in this business. In terms of Dropbox, you're quite right. Scaling Dropbox without the fundamental, fully elastic platforms of someone like AWS would certainly have been, if not impossible, super, super challenging. That certainly was a key enabler of the explosive growth of Dropbox and the incredibly powerful user adoptions and usage we've seen over the years that we're very, very humbled by and very grateful for. We obviously also very pleased with the fact that we continue to grow. We are today in a place where we've just announced 2 weeks ago that we've now just exceeded 500 million registered users. And it's always fun when you can move away from, previously we were talking about 400 million registered users, but now we can talk in billions instead of millions. So that's kind of fun, and again, something we very, very grateful and humbled by. So yeah, that's the brief background.
Fantastic. Now, you touched on this a little bit, but would Dropbox have been possible at all if you had to build your own infrastructure at the beginning?
Look, I am a firm believer that nothing is impossible in life. But if you go back 9 years, almost 9 years ago, when the business got started, that it would have been incredibly challenging from a technology standpoint. Notwithstanding from a funding perspective, from a money perspective, it would have been even more challenging. So if you go back and think of 2007, 8, 9, 10, in those years, leveraging that fully elastic platform that AWS S3 offers, that of course made something possible that was darn close to impossible.
Yeah.
Today, though, it's a very different story. But it depends on the life stage you're at as a company. And again, the beautiful thing as a startup, whether we're talking in 2007 or whether you're talking today, March 2016, reality is, if you're a small company, it is incredible what you can do as a small company, wherever you are in the US, and how fast you can scale and become a global, meaningful company, leveraging the infrastructure of great companies like AWS, Microsoft, or Google.
Right, exactly. And you know, it is interesting to look at that, because the idea for Dropbox came at just the right time, just as it was possible to do that without building out your own multi-billion-dollar infrastructure.
You bet.
Which leads us to the next point. As Dropbox has grown, you've really made a push to go beyond the consumer market that you started with into business and into enterprise. In fact, full disclaimer, Dropbox had been a sponsor of the Twit TV network last year at some point, and that's what you were pushing. You were really pushing your move into the enterprise. What has been the most challenging part of doing that? Because consumer gives you the brand name recognition. People know who you are. People know what you do. And the sales pitch for the business side was always, why not just use the tools that your employees are already using to share files on their personal computers? But it's not just a bigger Dropbox, and it's not just a Dropbox that has an additional piece of branding attached to it. You had to provide a different kind of service. What was the service you provided going from consumer to business, and what were the challenges of going from consumer to business?
So the core areas we had to address as we move from being a B2C to also being a B2B and going really into the high-end enterprise as well, was to make sure that the classic tick boxes that anyone in IT in enterprise would look for, including the admin console, security, migration, and so forth. Now, look, when you look at where we are today, we've now been in the enterprise space, in the B2B space for almost 3 years. As I mentioned, we have 500 million registered users that every day bring Dropbox to work in more than 8 million businesses. Today, we now have actually more than 150,000 paying companies, organizations as customers. And that's something we just announced last week. We have grown just in the past quarter with 25,000 paying companies, organizations. So it's a business that is scaling super fast. Here's the big thing, and here's what's changed in a really big way. Candidly, when you think about consumerization of IT, and think of Apple as a good example of the early days of that as well. IT professionals in the earlier days of say, Apple, or also of Dropbox coming into a work environment, specifically in larger enterprises, there was a certain pushback. And in some companies, depending on type of industry and type of IT professionals, that there would be a different reception of of bring your own device or bring your own app or bring your own cloud in the case of Dropbox. What I've seen happen in a significant way over the past period is where there used to be some pushback from IT professionals, specifically in larger enterprises, around the notion of shadow IT. What I see now is what was once deemed as shadow IT is now viewed as solutions such as Dropbox that really makes IT the heroes again of the large corporations. And what I mean with that statement is, if you think about it, you have all these hundreds of millions of people bringing their own cloud to work, Dropbox. But it's not supported by IT, not with the security that they demand and want. And here's a wonderful opportunity for IT professionals in large enterprises to then implement a company-wide solution built around Dropbox and provide their users across their organization with the security, the management, the support infrastructure that allows it to be a proper, connected, collaborative experience across their company. And that's hence the statement of what a great opportunity for IT professionals, again, to become the heroes of the users as opposed to gatekeepers to the network. So I see a lot of shift. I see wonderful progress in the US and across the world, in Asia and Europe, in terms of IT leaders, IT professionals being very progressive and shifting their views from a more negative, dark view of shadow IT to a more embracing type of attitude and dealing with the reality of, hey, this can do something really good for our business and for users and for IT.
We've got Creamy Corncob in our chat room who is bringing up the point that he read that Dropbox is used by about 97% of Fortune 500 companies in one shape or another. And of course, the consumer adoption is fantastic. It's one of those things that you just have. I mean, even if it's the free account, you have some sort of access to Dropbox. Yeah. But we've got a very particular audience here on the Twit TV network. They're tech savvy. They watch this channel all day. One of the shows that they really love is a show called Security Now with Steve Gibson. And Steve Gibson's thing is trust no one. And for a lot of these folks, the idea of putting their sensitive information up in the cloud on someone else's server, someone else's computer, is almost anathema. I mean, it doesn't sound like it could be secure. I know that Dropbox goes through this when you're pitching business services. I know Dropbox goes through this when you're pitching consumer services. So how have you allayed the fears of people who are saying, wait a minute, how can I give you the things that are most important to me if I don't even know where they're physically located in the world?
Yeah. I think I can go through all the standard pitch components that you talk about, where we take all the usual measures that you would expect from a world-class, enterprise-ready player, the ISO certifications we have, how you have the security and encryption built into the product. The one area perhaps I would like to specifically talk about is how we go about actually saving the data and what actually happens to it. So, you know, some scenarios we see a lot of is photos and videos and very large files. We don't save one file as one component. Actually, we chop it up into 4 meg pieces, blocks. And those are encrypted both at rest and in our data centers and in transit, of course. And it means 2 things. It means that from a technology perspective, as you make changes to a file and as you collaborate on a file, you don't have to bring down the whole new file or save the entire file you've been working on, but just the 4 meg component or the 4 meg block you've been working on. But moreover, from a encryption and security perspective, literally as a hacker going in, and if you ever could get access, which you won't, but actually figuring out how to piece those blocks together, it adds a layer of security that no one else in the industry does. So that's something that's very unique, that provides us with an ability to do sync at the highest speed of any of our competitors. We're 2 to 3 times faster than our competitors. We have a higher success rate in syncing data for our users, which matters a great deal. And of course, it adds the another security dimension to it that we feel really, really good about.
I did not know that you actually segment the files. That's actually really good. So if you were to breach, if you were to breach the Dropbox system, you'd have to piece back together the files in order to get something that could actually be read.
Yeah, and those blocks would sit across multiple data centers with no logic to it from a intruder perspective. But again, you know, it's a very hypothetical example. We haven't had that. We won't have that. But we feel good about the additional dimensions we have. Look, the notion of of trust and security is in the fabric. It's in the DNA of our founders, of Drew and Arash. As a matter of fact, it's a form part of actually our company values, our 5 company values. Trust is one of those 5. It is something we take very serious. Look, we have petabyte after petabyte of data. We have the largest repository in the world of Adobe file, of Microsoft Office files, more than Adobe or Microsoft themselves have files. We have more than 150 billion files. We service 500 million users. We have to take this seriously. It's something we invest in on an ongoing basis, and we are serious.
Okay, I'm impressed, but if I don't ask one question, the chat room will be very upset with me, and that is, who keeps the keys? Because yes, it's good that they're segmented, and it's good that you are encrypted in storage and encrypted in transport. That's what we would expect. But there's always going to be a subset of our audience who they will not trust any solution unless they're the only ones who keep the keys. And I understand that there's a big risk of losing customer files, because if they lose their keys, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Do you have a tier of service that allows the keys to be kept only on the user side and have Dropbox not have them at all?
We do not as a first-party solution today ourselves. That may change in the future, although I'm not making a product announcement here. The beautiful thing about our offering is through our extensible open APIs, we now have more than 300,000 API integrations, ranging from the Adobe's, Google, Apple's, Microsoft's of the world to very, very small but great value-add players. And that includes some great encryption security partners we're working with. So that's an offering that can be integrated, but it's not part of our first-party offering today. That may change, but as I said, I'm not making a product announcement.
Right, but also it just makes sense because you've got partners like Adobe, you've got partners like Sukasa, who they do provide very robust solutions that will do exactly that. They'll keep the keys on the user side, but it keeps Dropbox from having to deal with an irate customer who's saying, "What do you mean you can't get me back into my account, even though that's how I designed it?"
You're spot on. It's actually deeper than that. You're onto something super good, which is, look, you don't want to have an encryption solution, a key solution for every single cloud solution you have as a company. What you want to be able to have is one encryption solution that integrates with whatever cloud solution you have across the enterprise, and that is what we offer. Having that rich ecosystem of solutions that port in, that links into our core offering, those 300,000 plus APIs, that's what makes the difference. We have an incredible amount of traffic on a daily basis. We have now more than 40 billion API calls on a monthly basis, and ramping incredibly fast. So volume speaks here clearly. High level of integration, high level of use. It's adding value to our customers out there, small and large, and very, very large.
Thomas, in just a bit, I want to bring my co-host back in here. We're going to do a panel, and because we do need to talk about Dropbox's big bet, because there's been a huge project that's been underway for quite a while here, and it's coming to fruition, and it's exciting. But before we do that, we're going to take a break because we do want to thank the sponsor of This Week at Enterprise Tech. And, well, did you know that behind every successful team is a vision? And behind that vision is communication. And behind that communication is a tool that allows you to talk, to share, to be exactly the team that you need to be, which is why we're so happy that Atlassian is a sponsor of the Twiat Riot. Now, we've been using Atlassian at Twit as a vital piece of our creative process. Our engineers use Confluence to document equipment and work processes. We use Jira for managing vendors and organizing our constantly growing pile of tasks, which would otherwise be overwhelming. HipChat ties everything together, from event planning to DevOps to interdepartment communication. With Jira, we get a clear and concise flow of task management, allowing us to see exactly who is assigned what, when, who's talking to whom, and who had that great idea. With Confluence, we can share content and ideas on a timeline that lets anybody on the team see where the projects are going over time, which is great when we need to bring new team members up to speed. With HipChat, of course, with HipChat, we can communicate in real time with a timeline with IM or video on any of our devices. And of course, Bitbucket lets us test, review, comment, and manage our code in real time. From startups to 10,000-seat enterprises, Atlassian makes great ideas real. And those real ideas are what becomes your next $10 billion idea. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to give your business your all by going to Atlassian.com to learn more and see how Jira, Confluence, HipChat, and Bitbucket give your team everything you need to organize, discuss, and complete your shared work. That's Atlassian.com, Atlassian.com. Build what's next. And we thank Atlassian for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Chee, Curtis, so you've been hearing, which has actually been a fantastic discussion, both about security and just about the arrival of Dropbox on the scene. We talked about a story last week that, well, I think is very important here, and that is Dropbox leaving Amazon. We know that Dropbox was founded on Amazon. Their cloud services are what allowed that idea to become so big so fast. But, and hopefully Thomas can speak to this, they're leaving Amazon. Thomas, tell us about this.
Look, first of all, I want to clarify the headline you're looking at and the notion of Dropbox leaving Amazon AWS S3. It's not entirely true. There's always a nuanced balance in that. We are and have been spending the last 2 years building our own data infrastructure in North America and the US. We are now on a hybrid environment and will continue to be on a hybrid environment between S3 and between our own infrastructure. Reality is, in the last couple of years, we have been building out our own infrastructure. We came to a point where we realized we now had critical mass as a company with hundreds of millions of users. Now today, as I mentioned earlier, on 500 million users. We realized that there was a real business case in terms of putting our own infrastructure in place, and not just replicating what Amazon or AWS or S3 have, but rather building something for our use case, something that is completely customizable, something that really allows us to integrate end-to-end with, and really unleashes the full potential of allowing people to collaborate on files and documents on Dropbox, across any OS, across any platform, any device, in the right way with the right speed. So we felt the time was right. We've been working on that for the last couple of years. We have a very close partnership with a number of large hardware companies such as HPE, and they have been great in helping us to get us to the point where we are today.
I got to ask, I mean, the report that I read said that 90% of the files that you serve are now on your own infrastructure, the one that you've been building up for the last 30 months or so. So
I am aware of that 90% being reflected in the press. I can't confirm the exact percentage there,
right, of course,
whether or not that's correct. So I'm not able to comment on that. I'm so sorry.
No, but what you can say, what you have said is it is hybrid. So we're talking about a hybrid deployment.
Yes,
and I think we can all agree on that.
And we've been very transparent about that. Unfortunately, sometimes things get reported a little bit one-sided, and I understand how that happens, but I wanted just to be transparent and say it's a hybrid solution. A practical example of that is I have recently announced in Europe that we are about to put in place our own data infrastructure for those business customers in Europe who would like their data in Europe. We are putting in place a data infrastructure in place in Germany in the next couple of months, in the next 3 or 4 months. And we're actually doing that in partnership with AWS. So I do want to be clear and emphasize AWS is still an important partner to Dropbox, and we are proud of the work they've done together with us, we've done with them. It's a good partnership, but we are now in a hybrid scenario.
Chee, let me bring you in here because, again, you've got a unique position on a university campus. You deal with researchers all the time, both their research and their data needs. And you understand that for some users of cloud services who would really love the advantages of being able to put massive amounts of data into the cloud where you could then use big data tools on them, there is still the need to control where the data ends up. Talk to Thomas about that.
Actually, the requirement is for researchers in general, not just academia. places like the Office of Naval Research, DISA, DARPA, National Science Foundation, so forth. If your data actually migrates outside of the United States, it is the same as publishing it.
Yeah.
So that is actually when what I heard is the University of Hawaii went during the negotiation. Google had to guarantee it in contract that our data not exit the United States. Otherwise, the Google University deal would have been dead. I know a bunch of my researchers would like to use Dropbox, but they haven't really been able to find a way of guaranteeing their data doesn't exit the U.S.
So, first of all, it's a very, very, very good question you're raising. I would like to discuss that in detail with you. So when you have 2 minutes, ping me on thomas@dropbox.com. That's THOMAS@dropbox.com. And I'll bring you into full discussions with not just our educational team, but also our engineering and product team, so we can find a path forward. We're super proud of the work we do with educational institutions across the world, including in the US. It is, out of interest, I'll tell you, one of the strongest verticals for our business, both in terms of free use, but also in terms of paid for use. It's a space we take very serious. It's a space we believe in. It's very close to the heart of not just me, but moreover our two founders. But I believe we can find a solution to this, and the feedback is super.
Thomas, this is Curt Franklin. I have a question. You know, when I talk to CIOs about the topic of shadow IT and the cloud services that the individual employees are using inside the enterprise boundary, Dropbox is often one of the services that is mentioned as being an example of shadow IT. Do you find that that's something that you have to fight against when you go and are making an enterprise sales call, you know, to convince people to make use of Dropbox as an enterprise service, or does it actually help your case?
It's a super cool question, and I think it's a notion of things have changed in a really incredible way. When I think back a few years ago, when you looked at talking Dropbox in the enterprise to CIOs, to IT professionals, this was at times a challenging discussion. We were very fortunate to work with a number of very progressive CIOs in very large companies, in companies such as Under Armour, National Geographic, News Corp, MIT, and Hearst, where we were able to demonstrate not just the value we had to offer, but also how we could get around the whole notion of shadow IT. I am finding, I experienced that, for example, at the Forbes CIO Summit in San Francisco just a couple of weeks ago, that the notion of shadow IT is becoming more of an accepted reality of being in the IT profession in large companies. And instead of fighting against it, I see that shadow IT is being embraced. And it's a little bit what I mentioned earlier on. I think what Dropbox today is for IT professionals is no longer a shadow IT challenge, but rather a pretty cool opportunity for those IT professionals to become the heroes in the eyes of the users, their colleagues in the companies they work, because they can provide them with a solution that they already use, that is working, that is fast and easy to understand and easy to use. Look, here's the thing, Curt. I had the opportunity throughout my career in IT. I worked for a very large software company for a number of years in the Pacific Northwest. And in the software days, large enterprises would buy software. Then they had to take the software and go and implement it. Then they had to go and do the user training and find a way of getting the users to get value out of it. That was sometimes challenging. Coming from the other extreme, coming from the notion of consumerization of IT or bring your own cloud, it's a beautiful place because you as a CIO, you actually know your colleagues have already voted with their fingers, so to speak, in terms of what do they want to use, what helps them to do their job, to get the work done. So I think that's the beauty about it, and I think the whole discussion, as I said, has changed from being a problem to being a problem of shadow IT to today being actually an opportunity for IT professionals to shine and do good in the companies they work for. So I think the world is changing.
Thomas, we are coming to the end of the episode, unfortunately, because we've been having a lot of fun. But I do want to get in a question from the chat room here, and it's actually quite a good one from Creamy Corn Cob, who brings up the point that with 97% adoption in the Fortune 500, where's the sales pitch? I mean, where else can you go? I mean, are you just fighting for the additional 3%? Are you hoping that they'll expand their presence with Dropbox? You being in charge of revenue and you really pushing for Dropbox's vision for business and enterprise. What is success for you?
Success for me is twofold. Firstly, for those users, whether they pay or don't pay for our service, that we provide them with a solution where we earn their trust. And you earn users' trust by offering a secure solution, a fast solution, a solution that works, has a high sync speed, has a high performance, is easy to use, easy to understand. So customer success to me is the foundation for everything for the long term of building trust with our users and with our customers. So that to me is what really matters. Then there's, of course, from a business perspective, an opportunity to those customers you have today. Are you able to sell them into a solution where they are paying for service as opposed to using a basic entry service? And for those companies out there that today is using Dropbox, not to a full extent, but to some extent for some of the users from a paid perspective, to again earn their trust and to demonstrate that they should implement it wall to wall for all of their users. So look, I've been involved in cloud computing from day one. It has been a tremendous journey from very, very challenging times 8, 9, 10 years ago of trying to understand and explain the baseline of cloud computing. It's now mainstream. We passed the early adopter stage. We're seeing tremendous use of Dropbox. We take a lot of pride in that. We're very humbled by that. And we need to continue to make sure that we maintain the trust, earn the trust of our hundreds of millions of users, and build a bright business from that. So this is just the beginning. It's actually the beginning of the beginning, but a great start and one we're very, very pleased with.
We've been speaking with Thomas Hansen, the Global VP of Revenue from Dropbox. Thomas, we want to thank you very much for being a guest. This has been a fun episode. Sometimes it gets too heavy on PR speak. Sometimes it's too technical. You struck that right balance, and we thank you for that. Our audience will thank you for that. In fact, at some point, I'd love to invite you back because.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to.
Let's have an online storage panel. We'll have several vendors from storage as a service come on, and let's just have a cage match.
That would be super fun. As a matter of fact, you know what we should arrange? You should get us together in the same room in perhaps somewhere in the Bay Area, and you can see us sitting next to each other and prodding each other a little bit. That would be super fun. I can't wait for it, actually. So I'm in.
Okay, fantastic. Now, if you could please tell the folks at home where they can find you specifically. They know where to find Dropbox, but this is your time to plug anything you want, to talk about your Twitter address, your website. Where would you like people to go to find out more about Dropbox, more about Thomas Hansen?
All right. So anyone that wants to talk to me on a personal level in terms of reaching me directly, my Twitter handle is Hansen Cloud, Hansen Cloud, Hansen Cloud. I have to be honest and say the bulk of my time is on two mediums. It's on Dropbox.com. I am a frequent blogger on Dropbox.com, and I encourage you to go there and follow our blogs there. And you'll also find a lot of activity from me. I have just right about 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. So if you go and do a quick search, Thomas Hansen, working at Dropbox on LinkedIn, you will find a lot of activity there, and I'd love to welcome you there as well.
Again,
thanks a lot for the opportunity. I can't wait for that cage match coming up soon.
We'll have you over. Again, Thomas Hansen, the Global VP of Revenue at Dropbox. We thank you for being on This Week in Enterprise Tech.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Of course, we need to thank my co-hosts because I wouldn't want to do this show without them. Let's start with Chee. Curtis got it the first time, the last couple of times out. What do people need to know about you over this next week? What are you doing that's exciting? What are you doing that's post-worthy? What are you doing that people need to know about?
It's paperwork, and more paperwork. Unfortunately, it is rolling up interesting things, trying to get funding for grants. And I'm just very, very happy that House Bill 1685 has died, because they were starting to talk about trying to get all the faculty have to then pay their own salaries with their grants. And considering a lot of granting agencies don't allow that, it could have spelled the end of much of the research at the University of Hawaii.
It's just great when legislation doesn't actually check with the people it's going to be affecting. But Cheebert, hopefully you won't be dealing with nothing but paperwork, because I'll be there next week. Even though we do have a pre-recorded episode in the can for it, hopefully we can have a couple of videos, a little bit of stream time, and definitely a lot of chuckles in the land of the super hot and sticky volcano.
There you go.
Okay. Also with us, thankfully, and is Mr. Curtis Franklin, again, from Information Week Radio. Curtis, you've been having some great programs the last couple of weeks. What do you have in the can for the audience coming up?
Padre, I've been talking to some of the CIOs who are with the companies represented in our Information Week Elite 100. These are some incredible projects that have been put together. Just as an example, I was talking to the CIO and Chief Medical Information Officer of the nation's oldest hospital about deep, big data analysis that they're doing to help improve the outcomes of heart failure patients. We have stories like that going on across all kinds of industries at Information Week as we prepare for the Information Week Elite 100 conference, May 2nd and 3rd in Las Vegas. Come on over to informationweek.com. Check us out in both print, well, on the web, and in audio form with our radio shows. We'd love to have you in the audience.
Curtis, Cheebert, always a pleasure. Of course, it's always a pleasure to have you, the person who spent the last hour listening to the best dang enterprise podcast in the universe. That's according to 9 out of 10 shared folders on the internet. I just, every once in a while we get an episode that I'm very excited about, and this one I was very excited about. We had a guest who knew the issues, who could speak about the technology and about the executive level information. Please share this, and the best place to share it at will be our show page. Just go to twit.tv/Twiet, T-W-I-E-T. There you'll find all of our episodes if you want to download our back catalog, as well as our notes, and a place to subscribe. If you've got a friend out there who you think can benefit from hearing some of the latest and the greatest enterprise goodness every week, again, twit.tv/Twiet. Also, don't forget that you can follow me on my Twitter address. It's twitter.com/PadreSJ, P-A-D-R-E-S-J. If you follow me there, you'll find out what we're going to be doing each week. And that is the best place to suggest guests and topics for future episodes. If you liked this episode, if you liked hearing from Dropbox, if there's another company that you want to hear from, again, hit me up, twitter.com/PadreSJ. Finally, I want to thank everyone here who makes this show possible. Of course, to Lisa and Leo, who let us do This Week in Enterprise Tech, to Carson, my super producer, to Kara, my fantastic engineer, and to Cranky Hippo, Brian Burnett, the man who pushes my buttons. Brian.
All the time.
I got to ask this because I keep forgetting. What is it exactly that you do here at Twit?
Well, Padre, I believe we have a show together. We do a how-to show.
Not ringing a bell. Sorry.
Not ringing a bell?
No.
We put stuff together.
I think I would remember that.
Yeah, sometimes you try and kill me with your drone. You fly around the studio.
Bells. Sorry.
Well, if you don't remember, you should just go to twit.tv/KH and tune in every Thursday and Monday and watch it. Otherwise, Padre, if you want to keep up with me and know what I'm doing, you can go to Twitter and go to @cranky_hippo.
Fantastic. Until next time, I am Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, just reminding you, if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep quiet.